Hi, I'm Old Sneelock. Welcome to another episode of Old Sneelock's Workshop. Major malfunction here in the shop. Right above my workbench and the tool wall is the kitchen sink. And this afternoon I came downstairs to check on something. I was looking for decorations for fall, which are stored in the other room, and I heard pattering sound. So I came over to see what it was. Fortunately, my hearing aids helped me to hear it, otherwise I wouldn't have known it. Water was pouring down out of the ceiling, running down the saw rack and onto the workbench where it was pooling. Pipe fell off on the drain lines on the sink. Now, that's not a common thing to have happen, but it does happen. And what you have to do when that happens is you have to take all the tools off the wall rack and wipe them down, clean them up, and re-wax them. So this is going to be my video for today because this is what I got to do. Now don't worry, none of the tools were ruined, and it's more of an annoyance than anything else. Could have been a lot worse than what it is. I could have not come down. We could have been out of the house. Now, you would think, well, you know, nothing wrong with that. The dishwasher hooks into that same line. And every once in a while, we'll start the dishwasher and we'll leave. We'll go someplace else because it's automatic, right? It's like a CNC machine for dishes. It just washes the dishes. Well, if we had been gone, that drain line would have taken all the water that the dishwasher uses and dumped it on my tools, and it would have sat there for as long as I was gone. And when I got home, if I didn't come downstairs, which I don't always come down every single day, sometimes I'm even gone away from the house for a weekend. So, what can I do to prevent it? Well, in my case, the plastic drain lines came loose, and the line popped loose and fell off, and that meant that the water was just pouring in underneath the sink. Now I still have some damage to the brand new cabinets that cost me a year's pay at today's rates to put in. So I've got a issue with the cabinet underneath the sink. Floor is starting to ripple a little bit, which isn't a good thing. Now, these tools are all fairly old, so chances are they've seen worse or the equivalent in their life. It's just really disappointing. So I hope none of this ever happens to you. If it does, best thing to do, steel wool, get rid of whatever surface rust shows up. Because when the water coming out of the sink is hot, everything starts rusting almost immediately. So wipe off the water quick as you can, get everything dried off as quickly as you can, and then as soon as it's dry, make sure that all the rust is removed and you get a good coat of wax back on it again, because hot water takes wax off. Yeah, Kind of a pain in the neck, isn't it? So that's what I'm going to be doing instead of making a video for you. I was intending to work on this thing here, but I'm kind of preoccupied right now. I am glad that I had a coat of wax on everything because the rusting is minimal. Haven't been having a real good year with water damage. Although the last flood was last year, I don't want to have a flood every year. These are two of my favorite saws. They're both Diston D8s. This one is a 5-point rip, and this one is a 8-point crosscut. Two of the first saws that I went through and fully cleaned up and sharpened. And now I'm going back over them and giving them the restoration that they deserve. For 8 years of faithful service. This is my Shapley Hardware Company Diamond Edge. It's a 12-point saw. Does a beautiful job of cutting. This ugly beast, I say that with affection because it was my first practice saw to sharpen, and it is really in nasty shape. That's why I picked it as my practice saw, thinking that I wouldn't be able to make it cut, and I didn't want to do it with the saw that was in good shape for fear of ruining it, like I did my grandfather's thumb hole rip that he left me. Unfortunately, I only managed to screw up about 1 inch of the threads before I realized that cows and calves are a real thing. This one somebody else had left wet. It is etched very deeply with rust, mostly right along that edge of the teeth, but it still has its nib. Still has its nib. Somebody absconded with the medallion, thinking that since the saw was junk, it wasn't worth putting any time in, which I agree. That was my first impression too. I was completely wrong. Even though it's ugly and rusty and had this horrible etch mark on it. It's a 4-point per inch rip saw, and I was able to sharpen it, and it cuts beautifully, even with these nasty wrinkles in it. It still cuts a nice straight line. It does have cows and calves though, because it's a 5-point here and a 3-point there. Now the edge on the saw is long gone, so I can't tell you who the heck made it. It doesn't look like a Diston, and there are literally hundreds of different saw makers in the United States. In the middle to late 1800s. When the industrial age took over and people were actually making a living doing things. There. Safe again. This one is a Keystone Airmaster. Keystone was an off-brand of the Diston company. Now, by off-brand, it was a brand that the Diston company made and sold to hardware stores across the world. Less expensive, but still darn nice saws. If you find a Keystone, because it's an odd name, people don't attach much value to it. But the same people who made the Diston D8 that I love so much made the Airmaster. And this 10-point per inch saw does a beautiful job cutting. Now, normally I don't use a paper towel, but when the water was coming down, the first thing I could grab was the rag that I had to wax the saws. It had to be laying on the bench. So it's very wet and does not work for waxing saws right now. Okay, I have a whole saw till full of saws to go through. I've got 8 out of the 20. So I got another fun thing. square fell off the rack. Evidently I hadn't seated it properly. So anyways, I'll let you guys get on to doing what you like doing, and I'll do this thing that I have to do. If you have any suggestions for a new video, questions about today's video, or any of the other videos on the channel, just drop a note in the comments. You know I read them all. And I hope this doesn't happen to any of your shops. It's a really bad day. This video is not to be viewed by anyone under the age of 13 in the U.S. or 16 in the European Union, without the express written permission of the parents or legal guardians of the underage person. Such written permission must be on file at the local government entity in charge of enforcing the rules and regulations established by the FTC. Anyone violating these terms is admitting by default that they hold harmless the owners and operators of this channel. Any and all questions should be addressed to your local branch of the FTC.